is how to handle drop down using Selenium, right? So to understand about that simple topic, just this is a simple application we will use. So let me navigate to that application, right? So this is test-and-quiz.com. So this is just a sample web page. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen now.
Yeah, we can see
Yes,
more.
Yeah. Okay, so on top of this page, we have multiple web elements like text box, button, radio buttons, checkbox, drop button. So let's try to see this, how we can, click on this drop down and select any of these options, right? So once I click on the drop down, I can see some options in the drop down, right? So let's see how we can handle this particular in a scenario using Selenium. Let's say I wanted to select database testing. So once I click on database testing, the database testing should be selected as that particular option, right? So let's see how we can achieve it, right? So let me go back to Selenium, and as usually we will create a new class. Let's say the name of the class I'll just give as dropdown demo, and we need a main method, so select it and finish it. So once I finish, I can see a new class created, right? So as usually, let me copy paste the initial lines of code to open the browser and to navigate to some application. Okay, and then I will update the URL. So URL is this one, right? So this is the URL, right? So let me copy paste this here. Okay, so in that way, I'm just navigating to that page. So once I go to that page, what is that I have to do, right? So I have to select some option, right? So I have to select some option from that particular drop down, right? So first of all, let us try to inspect this particular drop down. So let me right click on the drop down and click on inspect. So once I click on inspect, I can see the HTML code associated to that particular drop down, right? So if I look at here, see, I can see there is one HTML associated to that drop down with the name select. Select is the name of the tag, and it contains some attribute called ID. It contains some value called testing drop down, right? And when I try to expand this select tag, I can see some set of option tags. So option tag is nothing but the available options we have it in the drop down, right? So every option we have, we can see over here is nothing but an option tag, right? So drop down should have an option tag, right? So if we look at here, see, we can see option tag contains ID automation, another ID performance, another manual, and then database, right? So we have some attributes in option tag also. The first attribute is ID, second attribute is value, and third, and we can see the text automation testing. So whatever the text we can see over here in between the option tags, so the same text we can see in the drop down as an option, right? So how can we click on the drop down, how can we select an option from that particular drop down is what we have to understand, right? So for that, we already have a predefined class called select class in Selenium API. So we will try to use that select class to select an option from that particular drop down, right? So let's see programmatically how we can achieve it, right? So first of all, we will try to identify this drop down with the help of ID. The name of the ID is testing drop down. Okay, so I'll just write driver dot find an element by ID. And what is this ID? This is the ID. So I am trying to identify the drop down, okay, with the help of ID, and that I am initializing to a variable called something called dropdown, which is of type web element, right? So we already know that whatever the object it can be a link or dropdown or image or input field or button or anything, paragraph, table, anything, whatever we see on the web page is a web element. So I just try to identify one web element, which is nothing but a dropdown, and that dropdown I'm initializing to some variable called dropdown, which is of type web element, right? So let me import this web element. Okay, so now what I will do is I'll create some object to a variable to our predefined class called select. So what is this drop down testing type drop down, right? This is testing type drop down. So I'm just creating new select. Okay, so I just created an object for this select class. So select is a class, predefined class present inside org.openqa.selenium.support.ui. Okay, so I'm just importing it. So for this particular object, I just wanted to pass this web element as a variable, because that is how this particular constructor they have designed, right? So let me go to that particular class in our API, selenium.support.ui.select, right? So if I go back to my browser, right? Let me go back to browser and I'll go to the last. This, yeah. So if I go here, selenium org.openqa.selenium.support.ui. So last but one package, right? So last but one package. So if I try to click on this last but one package, I can see some predefined class called select. This is the one, right? Select is the one. So let me click on select. So we can see that select is a predefined class present in so and so this package, and we have only one constructor which accepts web element for that particular class constructor. So that is the reason, even whatever the web element, which is nothing but the drop down we have identified, that drop down I am trying to pass it to the select class constructor, right? So this is how the constructor usage will be. So we understood when we learn Java what is the purpose of constructor. So the same thing, like whoever developed this select class, they have developed a constructor, right? So that constructor is accepting a web element, so that web element we are passing it. Okay, so anyways, if I come down, I can see some set of predefined methods, right? So which is present in select class. So using those predefined methods, right? So I will try to uh, select some values from the drop down or whatever. So deselecting or select or something like that. So mostly we'll be using the selecting. So I will explain selecting, and I will, I mean, you guys can work how to deselect and select all, something like that, right? So the different options, right? So if you look at here, there are three different methods which is used to select an option from the drop down, right? So we can select an option from the drop down with the help of visible text or by value or by index. So I'll just explain one by one. Let me go with the first one, I mean last one, which is select by visible text. What does that mean? So if I look at here, see, database testing is the text. See, that database testing is present over here. That means this is the text. So we can select that option with the help of visible text, which is database testing, or manual testing, or performance testing, or automation testing, something like that, right? So let me go back and we'll try invoking the last method, which is selected by visible text, and I will pass a value called database testing. Okay, so but what is the variable? This is a variable. So testing type dropdown dot select by visible text, right? So select by visible text. And what is the visible text? So let's try to copy it from here. So this is the visible text, right? So copy it and put it over here. So what happens with this visible text? If there is an option, then that particular option from the drop down will be selected, right? So let's try. So save the program, click on run, and see what is going to happen. Okay, so once we land on the page, the default value is automation testing, but we explicitly pass the database testing. So that's the reason it has selected a database testing from that particular drop, right? So let's try with the different values. Let's say I wanted to pass something like performance testing. So I'm just going back to my Eclipse and I'll just try performance. Performance testing, save it. Okay, let me click on run once again and see. Okay, so by default it was automation testing, and then we are asking Selenium to select the visible text with performance testing. So it has selected performance testing, right? So in that way, it's up to us, like, we can select automation testing, manual testing, or any types of testing. But whatever the visible text, that means the text we can see, the text we have to pass it, so that particular dropdown should be selected, right? So that is the one way, right? So to select an option from the dropdown, right? So we have some other ways, like select by value. What does this value mean, right? So if I go back and if I look at here, all option tag contains an attribute called value. For first option, we have a value called automation. For second option tag, we have a value called performance. For third one, manual. For fourth one, database. So if I give any that value, that particular dropdown should be selected. So let me give manual and see whether manual testing is getting selected or not. Okay. So let me go back to Eclipse. I'll just write testing dropdown dot select by value, select by value, and this is what I'm just trying to pass manual. So save it, click on run and see whether it is really selecting manual testing or not based on the value. Okay, we can see the default is automation, and then now it has selected manual testing because we clearly instructed Selenium to select a manual testing just by value, which is manual. So as we passed a value manual, so it is selected manual testing. So this is another approach, right? And third approach we have is select by index. Index in the sense, so totally we have 4 options under the selected tag. So first option tag will be in the 0th index, second one will be in the second index, third one will be in the 0, 1, 2, and 3. So totally we have 4 option tags. So totally 3 options will be there. So 3 0 to 3 indexes will be there. So let me give index 3. That means it should select a database, right? So this is the third option. So let me go back to my Eclipse and I'll just write testing type drop down dot select by index. So the index is sorry, let me give 3. So what is that I'm expecting is it should go and select the value present at index 3, which is database testing, right? So let's cross check. Let me click on run. Okay, we can see it has loaded. Okay, so it's automation, but we can see some error in the background. So let us see what is the error. So it says unsupported operation expected. You may only deselect. Oh, sorry, I have given deselect instead of selecting. Okay, save it. Let me click on run once again. Okay, we can see the browser open. Default is automation testing. As we have given index 3, so the value present at index 3 is database testing. So it has selected the database test, right? So these are the 3 different options we have to select a value from the drop down. But out of these 3, the first one is the most used one, and this is the preferred one also, right? So the reason is the indexes may change, value may change, right? But visible text will be mostly same. Automation testing will be automation testing only. It may not change. Performance will be test performance. Manual will be manual. Database testing will be database testing. So these values may not change. So let's say some other testing comes in the first option, then automatically if we were depending on the index, so index will go wrong. Or if you depend on value, but sometimes values may change, right? So but always this names doesn't change. So that's the reason we have to always prefer on this particular option called selected by visible text option, right? So worst case, if this is not there and this is not working, then go with index and value options. But the first preference is always to visible text, right? So that is all about the drop down, how to select the values from the drop down, right? So let me give some small assignment on this. Uh, Identify 2 different web applications with drop down and select an option and select that option, right? So this is the first one, right? So this is assignment, so please try to work on it. So let me give the small hint as well. So the same class, you just have to use these methods, right? So to deselect any value by value, by visible text, or by index, right? Or if you want to deselect everything, then just deselect, right? So that's all about this particular topic. It's very simple. So I request you guys to work on the assignment and let me know if you have